In Chapter 13, we're going to talk about the challenge of gangs. The gang is first and foremost a community problem. It is the community's kids who decide whether or not to form or join a gang, and it is the community's residents, the institutions, and the businesses that are most victimized by gang activity. Now, without question, law enforcement has to play a part in responding to these gangs, but in the absence of partnerships with engagement of the community, any policies or policing efforts that are being used are going to be very lacking because of the lack of help by the community. You have to have the community involved in order to make a difference in this type of initiative. Let's talk about understanding the gangs and gang members. Gangs have spread throughout our country like a plague and now exist in rural, suburban, and inner cities in every metropolitan area. Some analogies of gang problems is in a society is some people refer to it as like a cancer, where street gangs prey on the community like a malignant growth and is eaten away at its host until only the wasted shell remains. They use harassment, intimidation, extortion, and fear to control their territory. Daily, countless news stories depict the tragedy of gang violence. So these things are prevalent and they're happening quite frequently through our society. Let's talk about gang activity, the impact on communities. Gangs, they have different characteristics based on the activities in which they're engaged. Some gangs are violent. Others focus on crime commission with violence as a byproduct. And the same is true with a gang's relationship to drugs. Some focus on drugs as a business, and others engage in business meetings to meet their drug needs. They also use females. Females are used in gangs in a variety of ways, often because they arouse less suspicion than the males do. Females may serve as lookouts for crimes. They may conceal stolen products or property. They carry weapons. Think about it. The drug dealers don't want to be caught with these weapons, so they allow the females to carry them. So these are some of the many reasons as to why they use the females in the gangs as well as young children, because they're less suspicious, and the police are less likely to suspect the females or the young people out in our communities to be engaged in this type of activity. Let's talk about why youth joins gangs. Gangs have a strong appeal to many children who live in communities where gangs thrive. Gangs can fulfill the need to belong or the need for attention. Children with low self-esteem can gain identity in a gang culture. The gang members can also provide friendship and emotional support for the kids that they're not receiving at home. Additional reasons why youth join gangs is to have a potential to make easy money. They can make that quick, easy money and engage in exciting activities while they're doing it, and to express defiance and rebellions against adults and their parents. So this is what kids typically do anyway, where the gangs can reinforce that. Additionally, children that's living in crime-ridden neighborhoods with heavy gang activity join a gang to give them the way of feeling safe within that neighborhood and give them some protection as well. All right, let's talk about preventing gang membership, because common sense suggests that preventing a gang problem in the first place is preferable to finding strategies to deal with such a problem after it surfaces. So research has identified risk factors that's associated with gang membership with implications for developing effective targeted prevention type of strategies that will help to reduce it. If we begin early, it's a proven fact that we can reach them. See, although research indicates that the peak age for joining the gang is 15, this doesn't mean that prevention efforts should be aimed at children that's 14 years of age. Instead, prevention should begin well before the peak age for joining a gang, like ages 10 to 12, according to studies that have been done. So we have to keep that in mind. And there are various different types of programs out there. There's one called the GREAT program. This one's aimed at preventing gang membership and it's called the Gang Resistance Education and Training Program. So it's a national program and it has proven successful. This program is a proactive approach to deter violence before it begins. And the program builds a foundation focused on teaching children the life skills that they need to avoid violence and gang membership. This is, again, just one of many. There's also the GRIP program and other things that they have out there to try to help kids to stay out of trouble and not join these type of violent gang activities and groups. Let's talk about recognizing the presence of gangs, because there's several indicators out there that'll let you know whether or not gangs are present. You know, within the school, gangs can thrive on anonymity, denial, and lack of awareness by school personnel. So the gang member whose notebook graffiti shows all types of things written on it, more than likely they're involved in some type of gang activity. But if the school denies it in spite of all of the things that they're seeing, then the chances are the gangs are going to continue to grow and they're going to get out of control. So we have to be able to recognize and respond to this. You know, the condition that makes the school environment most ripe for gang activity is denial, because public officials who are more focused on the images and the concerns of their schools, they can get rid of this stuff from happening. But if they don't, then it's going to cause the problem to get worse. So we have to make sure that we recognize these signs and that we act on them, and we don't try to deny that it's happening, because denial is a bad thing when you're dealing with this type of stuff, because it's only going to cause it to grow. It's like throwing fuel on fire. It's going to cause it to increase. Let's talk about the police response. And intelligence is important. You know, an important task that the police departments have to do is gathering information and intelligence on gangs and their members. And intelligence is known as what gangs are out there, you know, where they are, what are their names, who's involved in it, what type of activity are they involved in, these type things, you know. And each city's gangs programs should be supported by a gang information system that provides sound and current information to let the police know so that they can intervene in these type things that are taking place. All right, so let's talk about dealing with the gang problem. How do we deal with it? There's multiple different strategies that we can use, and one of them is suppression. And law enforcement agents view suppression tactics as crime prevention activities and community collaboration. The community has to come together in that order, so as most effectively as they can, to prevent these gangs from controlling their areas. The suppression component involves a collaboration between the police, probation, prosecution, the community, and they're targeting the most active gang members and the leaders out there. So the intervention component would help gang members who want to get out of the gang and help them to do so immediately. This is also a very important strategy when you're dealing with suppression. Also, there's social intervention and social opportunities that also can help out. We have to have the society involved in helping, as well as community mobilization. The community has to get on board. Police can't do it all by themselves. You have to have more eyes out there than just the police and other individuals helping to report and talk about some of the things that are taking place, because you're living in those communities, you're seeing what's going on, so you know more about that area than the police in most cases, because you're there whenever you're not either at work or at school. So we have to get the whole community involved and get the community mobilized in order to make a difference in this and other crimes that would happen in the areas in which you live. Let's talk about the federal efforts to address the great gang problem that we have out there. You know, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Safe Streets Violent Crime Initiative began in 1992, and it was designed to allow each field office to address violent street gangs and drug-related violence through the establishment of an FBI-sponsored long-term proactive task force that focuses on violent gangs and violent crimes and the apprehension of violent fugitives. And that's the key. You have to be proactive in these things in order to make it happen. And of course, the Federal Bureau partners with state and local officials to help get this problem alleviated. All right, let's discuss some of the local strategies to address a gang problem. They include strategies such as establishing behavioral codes, obtaining civil injunctions to remove people from certain areas and businesses and things, establishing drug-free zones around schools, implementing conflict prevention strategies, applying community pressure on different entities and individuals that might have power within the community, and instituting graffiti removal type programs, because if you let that graffiti stay up, 9 times out of 10 more graffiti is going to happen, and this is also going to cause wars between the different gangs that are within that area putting up these graffitis. Needless to say, gangs are a community problem. Gangs are not only a law enforcement problem, but they are the entire community's problem. So to effectively tackle a gang problem, all affected parties, law enforcement, schools, parents, youths, businesses, religious groups, and social service organizations must be engaged in finding a solution to solve these problems. Because again, one entity alone cannot solve these problems. In summary, prevention should begin, first of all, it should begin early. Target youth that's exposed to the multiple risk factors, with those that have the most trouble in their neighborhoods, and the ones that have low self-esteem, all of this type stuff. Address all facets of the youth lives. Don't just look at one factor. Address all of the factors that are contained within their lives. Also, community mobilization was found to be the most effective strategy to addressing the gang problem. Again, getting the community involved. Without the community involvement, it's not going to happen. Also, community ambivalence towards gang exists for many reasons. So we have to realize all of this in order for us to make a difference within our communities.